Going into the twin pregnancy, I once again really prioritized my nutrition, and I felt even better in my twin pregnancy than I did with my second
Wow.
baby, which I think is so crazy to think that I'm growing like two babies plus still breastfeeding my toddler, and I feel my best. And I really believe that your body speaks to you through symptoms. And so many times we just push things aside and say, like, oh, you're just pregnant, you're going to have that. Or, oh, you're a new mom, oh, you're postpartum, you're breastfeeding, you're going to feel exhausted. But no, you can support your body. I think we're designed to have babies and to breastfeed. And, babies are designed to wake up at night, but we should still be able to function.
Welcome to the Breastfeeding Diaries. And on this episode, we are talking to Allegra Gast, and she is just going to share with us about nursing twins, about nutrition and health while breastfeeding. And I'm really excited to hear her story. So, first, Allegra, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell everyone like what you do and who you are?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. So, yeah, I'm Allegra Gast. I'm a registered dietitian and international board certified lactation consultant. I'm also a military spouse, and we are currently stationed here in Texas. But I started my private practice, Aloha Nutrition, when I lived in Hawaii. I have four kids, a 6-year-old, 3-year-old, and 1-year twins. And so this past year has been a roller coaster. um, but yeah, I've breastfed all of them with lots of hurdles. And so when I work with families one-on-one for lactation, it's, a lot of that professional part, helping them, but also that personal because I've been there, the cracked nipples, clogged ducts, babies that refuse the breast, and then babies that have also refused the bottle, bottle refusal, which made going back to work and doing consults stressful. And then, of course, navigating twins, like how do you latch two newborns? Like that was a whole challenge in itself. But it's really been an amazing journey. And then just as a dietitian, really like understanding how food can really influence mom's health and how she feels and the stamina to breastfeed because let's face it, breastfeeding is demanding. It's a lot on our body and it makes us hungry too. So
Yes.
really having that background in nutrition has been helpful and just maintaining milk supply and navigating this chapter and just feeling good, especially when I'm waking up double the times at night. So
Yeah. So would you say you're more on the crunchy end, like holistic, or more on the medical side of things when it comes to nutrition?
Definitely more of the scrunchy, I like to say. So definitely more holistic, but we'll go to Chick-fil-A here and there. I try to just bring good food at home, like in our house, and we do mostly home cooked meals. But then if my kids go to a birthday party and they have chicken nuggets or, cake with artificial dyes, I'm not like, oh my gosh, that's the worst thing
Yeah.
ever. I don't say that foods are toxic. Especially with my kids, I tell them that some foods are fun foods and some foods make us strong and healthy, and help us run fast. So I talk a lot about like fruits and vegetables are good for our gut, and there's all these little bugs inside of us, and these good bugs help us. They help us with our mood, they help us with our energy, and I think my kids now like have a big appreciation for healthy food, but
That's
of course,
good.
they're kids, they're gonna have some of this fun food too.
Yeah, for sure. So, what got you into nutrition? Was it more of the like, I'm sick and I need help? Or I think people say you're either smart or you're sick. So, were you the smart kind who were like, oh, this is right,
Yeah.
this is good?
Yeah. I got into nutrition. I mean, I knew I wanted to do something with food because I love food. I actually grew up overseas and my dad worked for the State Department for the government. And so we lived in many countries. And so I always had an appreciation for food and how food brought us together. I loved learning how food can affect our health. And so when I was 19 years old, that's when I decided I wanted to become a dietitian. And so I became a registered dietitian and got my first job working at WIC, but still all of our education was very conventional, just like like, okay, for example, you have low iron, just take an iron supplement. But we never really asked the question why. Well, why do you have low iron, for example? And so it wasn't until I was a dietitian for probably like 4 years and before I kind of went into functional nutrition and learning more about the root cause approach to things. And I think that's when I kind of just started shifting and asking more questions. And, if someone has a yeast infection, I was taught, oh, we'll just go on the candida diet, or some people are just more prone to it. But now I want to ask, well, why? Why are you more prone to it? Or, you know, so it's just kind of been evolving over the years. But I would say, like, a lot of dietitians and what we're taught in dietetic school is very much that conventional nutrition, but there's so much more to that as
Yeah,
well.
definitely. Okay, so throughout all of your travels, or even from your own family, like what did you see about breastfeeding before you actually had kids?
I thought it was easy. You just plop a baby on the breast and everything's good. And my first job was working at WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, back in Hawaii. And yeah, I was naive to breastfeeding. I just thought moms make milk automatically. You put the baby to the breast and everything's good. And so it wasn't until I worked at WIC where I saw that, breastfeeding is hard. There are lactation consultants for a reason. And it doesn't just come naturally. Like, sure, breastfeeding is natural, but it definitely is a learned skill. And not everyone has an abundance of milk supply either. Not all babies latch, so a lot of times it's positioning. And so it was this whole other world. And I really wanted to help moms. I just saw how rewarding it was for the other lactation consultants at WIC. And so I then pursued my IBCLC credential. And so I was in IBCLC for 2 years before I had my first baby. And so I had all the head knowledge, like
Mhm.
everything that I learned and helping families. But then it wasn't until my first baby where I was like, wow, this is actually hard. And I told my husband I wanted to give up, but I couldn't. And he was like, no, you have to. And that's a huge thing that I tell parents is like, you need to have your cheerleader because you are not going to want to push through the pain at 3 in the morning. And so having that cheerleader is huge, that support person. And my husband was that for me. And we overcame tongue ties, and it gave me a whole new appreciation for it and just that empathy with other families. So yeah, it was kind of, you have all the textbook, but then actually putting it into practice myself, it was a big learning curve. I learned a lot from my first baby.
So, what was your motivation then? I mean, you said you had your husband being a cheerleader,
Mhm.
but was it a little bit of like pride of like, well, I'm a lactation consultant, I should be able to do this? Or like, what was your motivation there?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some pride. Like, I'm a lactation consultant. I can't just, stop. And I have a milk supply. My milk supply was not an issue. For me, it was the pain. Like, every time I
Mm.
tried to latch her on, she would just clamp. And, she had a really bad posterior tongue tie. And I saw a body worker. We saw a chiropractor. We worked with like speech pathologists to do suck training. And I did suck training on her, and things slightly improved. But every time she would latch, I would have that toe curling pain, and it was just excruciating. But yeah, I think just kind of the pride and that I was a lactation consultant. I was like, I can't just give up. And then kind of leading into that functional nutrition, functional lactation, I like to say, is still getting to that root cause. And I knew she had a tongue tie. And so things definitely improved once we released it. And so, I don't think all tongue ties have to be released. It really comes down to function and how the function is. And she did not have good function. We worked on things before getting it released, and things didn't improve. And so after we did the release, there was a like night and day difference. And we continued to breastfeed until she was 3.5 years old. Um,
Wow.
So yeah, definitely getting that release helped alleviate that pain. And, I did have that milk supply and things definitely improved. And I always tell moms, like, you won't have that bond. Like people always say, like, oh, I love breastfeeding. You have that bond. But at the beginning, when they're cluster feeding, when you're figuring things out, like it's kind of a chore, and that's okay. You have to feed your baby. And same with like bedtime. Right now, I do not like bedtime, but it's not like I'm not gonna do bedtime. So, just trying to
Yeah, I like that. I like that because I think for me, I shared a little bit of my story with you, but the bond was really hard when I was, away from my baby for the month that he was in the NICU. And then when he got out, he was just still like very lethargic and sleepy and stuff. And he didn't smile until 4 months. And for me, that smile was a huge part of my bond with him. And it was like up until then, I could just drop him off with whoever and I would be like, "Bye, let someone else take care of him." But up and then the day that he smiled, after that, I was like, "Oh, I need to be with my baby." And I finally had that feeling of like, "Oh, I'm bonded to him. I need to be with him." And I think that was more with my first, because then with my second, it was like, "Oh, he's newborn, he's cuddly. It doesn't matter if he's smiling." Like I was just immediately bonded to him. So very different experiences, but I appreciate that perspective for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's hard, and definitely NICU babies, you're already separated, and so that bond can take longer to develop. But that's awesome that it eventually came.
Yes, yeah, it
Great.
all worked out in the end. So, I guess going to the whole idea of like, okay, your first baby had the tongue ties, and then so what was the um voices in your head of the idea of should you just pump and give her bottles versus, oh, you need to nurse her directly? Like, what kind of factored into your decision there?
Yeah. So when I had like the actual cracked nipples and it was just too excruciating to breastfeed her, I did pump. And so there was a time, like probably a week or so, where I just exclusively pumped. But then I was also worried, like, well, I know I want to breastfeed her, so I want to keep her familiar to the breast. And so sometimes I would just breastfeed for maybe like 5 minutes, like whatever I could bear, and then I would just pump the rest and, bottle feed her that, like whatever she needed in addition to that. But then I developed an oversupply because I was like latching her and then pumping. And so basically, I'm telling my body I have twins, which is ironic because now I actually have twins. Um, but yeah, I knew I wanted to breastfeed and like keep the breast familiar to her. So then kind of switched from exclusively pumping to probably latching 4 times a day and then pumping the other times. But even that was really hard to bottle feed my baby when I knew that she could latch. It was just painful on my end. And I will say I do have a high pain tolerance. So a lot of times I just kind of like pushed through it and, what yeah, I just kind of pushed through it, and I knew what to do for like the cracked nipples, but you can't control what your baby can and can't do. Like you can do all the things, but they still have to learn as well. So I never actually bled, which is a good thing because I did wet wound healing. I didn't have the silverettes. I don't know if you're familiar with the
Yeah.
silverettes. They're like the silver little molds that you put over your nipples to help with healing. I don't think they came out with that just yet when I had my first, but I did do wet wound healing, put like tons of nipple ointment on my nipples and did the saline soak, which really helped prevent any just infection or anything like that, since it was like an open wound because she was biting. Um, but yeah, I guess to answer the question, I just kind of just mentally knew that I wanted to breastfeed and just kind of pushed through it. So.
Yeah. So after that, with your first, so you kind of kept going. Did you have any other challenges before you kind of hit the 1 year mark, or was it pretty smooth sailing after those tongue ties were revised?
She had a really bad distraction, which was really frustrating. So it would be hard when we were out and about, and she has FOMO even as like a 6-year-old right now. She still has FOMO and wants to know what everyone's doing, what's going on. So that was like really frustrating because I would be like in the middle of a letdown and all of a sudden she'd just pop off and my milk is like spraying. I'm like trying to get her back on. And then bottle refusal, which is funny because like she was distracted at the breast, but then also didn't want the bottle. But thankfully, like really it was just the tongue tie and the cracked nipples and vasospasm that we dealt with. But after about 2.5 months, I would say it was pretty good, besides the distractions. So
Yeah.
I think that was kind of our big thing.
What
Um,
is vasospasm? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so vasospasm is constriction of blood flow to the nipple. So your nipple will turn white, it will blanch, it'll look like lipstick nipples, and it'll be very sensitive and like have a lot of tingly feeling. Like I couldn't even take a shower and have the shower head on my breast because it just hurt so much. So I had to turn my back. Anything that brushed my nipples would just like be so painful. And a lot of people mistake thrush for vasospasm, or they mistake vasospasm for thrush. But thrush is actually pretty uncommon. It's actually vasospasm a lot of times. So a lot of the symptoms overlap.
Wow.
So yeah, because she clamped down so hard, my nipples were turning white, they were lipstick, and so that affected that blood flow from going to my nipple, which caused that tingly, painful feeling.
Right. Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so then kind of flashing forward, did you wean her fully before you got pregnant with your second, or was it like during your pregnancy?
Yeah, no, she continued to breastfeed. I thought she was going to self-wean, but she just pushed through and she would do dry nursing. So my supply took a huge dip around 11 weeks, which is very common during pregnancy. It's common for your supply to decrease. And so my supply decreased. I no longer heard swallows. I had really bad nursing aversions, really bad like nipple sensitivity because everything is like heightened during pregnancy and your breasts are growing in preparation for the next baby. But yeah, it was hard to wean her. But a part of me also wanted to continue breastfeeding because I felt like there was something so beautiful about holding both your babies, like your toddler and then your newborn. And so I was kind of excited to tandem feed. So that also was kind of my motivator to just keep going. And once I had my second baby, we continued to tandem feed for 15 months. So I weaned her at 3.5 years old. I was just like over nursing her. And then was also breastfeeding my baby, and I continued to breastfeed him until he was 3 years old. And even my second, I breastfed him throughout my twin pregnancy. So at one point, I was feeding three babies, my toddler, my second baby, and then my twins. Um, but yeah, navigating the second baby and breastfeeding, I did not encounter engorgement or clogged ducts because my toddler was thankfully like nursing the other side while my baby took the one side. So thankfully, I didn't really experience much engorgement like I did with my first baby. My first baby, I had that really bad engorgement, and with her tongue tie and me pumping, had that oversupply. So I know a lot of people want an oversupply, but no, there are like it is so uncomfortable, so painful. You're more at risk for clogged ducts and mastitis, and you know,
So,
there's
how does I've
out.
always wanted to ask this when you're nursing a newborn and a toddler, does the milk go back to a like sticky, thick colostrum, or does it stay like a liquidy milk?
Nope. So it does transition to colostrum around 16 to 22 weeks of pregnancy. Your milk will transition to colostrum and your body will prioritize the newborn. So it'll make milk for the newborn.
So the
Um,
toddler kind of
mhm.
has to like that or kind of deal with
Yeah.
that, I guess,
That's
throughout the
why
rest of
some
the
babies
pregnancy.
naturally wean. Some naturally wean during pregnancy. Some keep at it, like mine did a lot of comfort and dry nursing during pregnancy. And even with the colostrum, she would just take that. And colostrum is a natural laxative. It helps babies have that first bowel movement, that meconium. But for your toddler, it's also a natural laxative. And so her poops were very watery,
Oh
like,
gosh.
yeah, and even change the color. But yeah, your body's amazing. Your body will make what the baby needs.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I didn't know like how that worked as far as like if there was just a ton of milk and the newborn being like getting, sprayed with milk so the milk is still kind of adjust to the baby and the toddler just kind of has to roll with it a little bit.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So your newborn will get that colostrum, the thicker milk. And then once your milk comes in around 3 to 5 days, typically 2 to 3 days, but it'll transition to like that watery milk that you were mentioning. And that will be calorically designed for your
For the
newborn.
newborn. Yeah. So throughout in between pregnancies, did you have like a menstrual cycle come back or did you just kind of get pregnant before that happened?
No, so I had my menstrual cycle came back probably around 9 months postpartum with my first baby. And so I was, it was kind of not regular, and that can be common with breastfeeding.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know I was pregnant with my second one until my husband was like, I feel like you're pregnant. You just are acting different. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, and we were trying, but because I wasn't regular on my cycle, I wasn't sure when. But I took a random pregnancy test, and sure enough, I was pregnant. And I was like, what? How did you know? um,
So I guess that kind of leads me to a question of throughout each of these journeys. So like you're nursing and pregnant at the same time. And I know like for me, like when I get my menstrual cycle back, it like during that time, it's like along with breastfeeding, I just felt a little bit more drained or like I'm just being like sucked out of from my period and nursing. And thankfully that's gotten better. But I could share my tips with other people at a later time. But I want to hear your tips of like, how did you make it to where you could function while your body was just delivering to pregnancy and to nursing.
Yeah, I mean, nutrition is huge. Nutrition is the foundation of everything. And so, getting adequate protein. So, I aim for 100 to 130 grams of protein a day. So, that's about 30 grams per meal. And the first couple months with my first baby, I did not prioritize protein. I did not prioritize my health. I did not really eat breakfast. I would eat like cereal with almond milk, which has like a negligible amount of protein, and I was tired all the time. And everyone just says, oh, that's just being a mom. You're a new mom. And around 4 months, my husband deployed, and I was like, I cannot not function while taking care of my baby alone. And I was like, something has to change. And so I realized like just was not eating enough, and I was not eating enough protein. I was like snacking all the time. And so I started making dietary changes. And then I stumbled across the book Real Food for Pregnancy by Lily Nichols. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And just like the importance of protein and animal products. And I was actually vegan during my pregnancy with my first, probably just really the first trimester. And then I had so many food aversions and all of my protein staples as a vegan, I could not tolerate. And so I started bringing in eggs and then Greek yogurt and then fish and, slowly brought in more animal products. Um, and once I started doing that, I was getting more protein, I was getting more calories, and I started feeling better. I also started incorporating electrolytes and like mineral mocktails. I don't know if you know, like electrolytes are, I like to say, they create an electrical charge in your cells. They're your body's spark plugs. So that's things like potassium, magnesium, sodium, chloride. And so just really being more mindful about my nutrition during my pregnancy for my second baby really carried me through that pregnancy while nursing my baby, my first baby. So I actually had a really great pregnancy. And then even postpartum, really prioritizing nutrition, making breakfast a non-negotiable, like, okay, I'm so tired. My toddler needs me. My toddler needs me to wipe her on the toilet, and then my baby is crying. Let me quickly just take one bite of this granola bar or a beef stick or just some kind of fuel to fuel me, or even just drinking more water with electrolytes. And so just starting to change my perspective on nutrition, like, and just parenting, like food is fuel. If you want to fuel yourself and feel good, you need to eat. And it's definitely like what you're eating as well. So really prioritizing that protein. And when people think protein, they just think like adding more meat and like animal products, and like, yes, that is such a great source, but also just higher protein carb options like beans or whole wheat bread, or like Kodiak pancakes, they're higher in protein, or like Dave Killer bread, they're higher in protein. Doing chickpea pasta, spaghetti, adding like switching to the beans or the chickpea type pasta. So just kind of like, even adding like hemp seeds or chia seeds to your oatmeal. And so just kind of being more mindful of that, like your protein. I know 100 to 130 plus grams of protein sounds overwhelming, but it's very doable. It doesn't have to be like a huge slab of steak, but you can just slowly add protein here and there. So that's, I think, was the game changer for me, and fueling myself and feeling energized. And then going into the twin pregnancy, I once again really prioritized my nutrition, and I felt even better in my twin pregnancy than I did with my second
Wow.
baby, which I think is so crazy to think that I'm growing like two babies plus still breastfeeding my toddler, and I feel my best. But
Wow.
like really, I was drinking probably 3 mineral mocktails a day. Like if I had a Charlie horse, cramping, or Braxton Hicks, I was like, gotta up my fluids, gotta get up my electrolytes. Um, and I really believe that your body speaks to you through symptoms. And so many times we just push things aside and say, like, oh, you're just pregnant, you're going to have that. Or, oh, you're a new mom, oh, you're postpartum, you're breastfeeding, you're going to feel exhausted. But no, your body, you can support your body. I think we're designed to have babies and to breastfeed. And, babies are designed to wake up at night, but we should still be able to function. And definitely it's a season. I don't think we should be running 100 miles per hour every day, all day, every day. And like you said about your menstrual cycle, and me just kind of feeling like you need to kind of calm down. Like, yes, that's your body speaking to you. Like, hey, we need to calm down. We have our menstrual cycle. And I don't know if you know the book, The Woman's Code, but
Okay.
Dr. Alyssa Vitti, I think is her name. She's a
Okay.
hormone expert, and she's all about understanding your menstrual cycle and how, during your menstrual when you're on your actual period, you take things slow. When you're in your follicular stage or your ovulation stage, you can start to incorporate a little more things, or like activities. Or she even talks about like building your career and your business around your cycle, and
Yes,
just
I've heard of
times
that.
of the month you can kind of take advantage of that. So I've kind of been implementing that. And when I feel I'm doing too much, I need to calm down, put boundaries on things, and, maybe do more activities at home with the kids versus going to the park and the library and the gym and, all these things. So I think just really being in tune with my body, what my body is saying, how it's speaking to me, making sure I'm nourishing it. Um, but yeah, I
Yeah.
think I see it a lot now, like as a dietitian working primarily with postpartum moms, especially if they're having back-to-back pregnancies. They're never fully repleting and recovering from their first baby or their previous baby. And so they're already entering their next pregnancy nutrient depleted. And this constant depletion takes a toll on your thyroid. It takes a toll on digestion, even like mental health. And so really, I wish our doctors and midwives really, and just other health professionals really supported and encouraged moms to prioritize their nutrition and their health.
Yeah,
Um, so
that's so true. I totally agree.
Mhm. And I
Okay,
can give some
so
tips if you want on just like how to make this manageable as a mom.
yeah, well, I think I guess this is kind of similar to a tip, but I know you said you love food and you traveled, but you were talking about all these different ingredients, and I was thinking, like, I feel like a lot of your clients probably have some excuses for why they can't eat a certain way. So what is your typical like client's excuse or American excuses? And then I guess what are your strategies to get around those?
Mhm. The biggest thing I hear is I don't have time. And obviously, 24 hours, it does look different for everyone. But, we live in a first world country. Convenience food is there. And I think a lot of the crunchy community thinks that convenience food is all bad and you have to make everything from scratch if you want it to be healthy, but that's not true at all. Like Trader Joe's has some great easy meals. Costco, has ready to go meals. And sure, maybe they're not using the best oil, but at least you're eating some food versus doing takeout because you're just like, oh, whatever, I'm just gonna do takeout. Like that's worse than buying the convenience foods. And it's not the packaging that's the issue, it's the ingredients. But, if like I do frozen vegetables all the time, like my kids, we eat a good amount of vegetables, but that's because I'm not afraid of using frozen. I'm not afraid about using canned vegetables. Like it's not the whether it's a package or not, it's the added ingredients in there. So I try not to buy canned fruit with high fructose corn syrup. That's one thing I try to stay away from. Even like frozen vegetables, I make sure that it's just the frozen broccoli or just frozen bell peppers. And people think that frozen isn't as healthy as fresh, but sometimes it can actually be healthier because they're picking it at peak season and flash freezing it. So all those nutrients are all intact and it's also washed, it's cut, it's ready to go. Whereas
Yeah.
fresh, you're buying it from across the country. How much time has it been sitting in cargo with all that carbon monoxide? How
Yeah.
much manhandling has it been through? A lot of times they pick it before it's even ripe. Um, so my rule of thumb is if I'm gonna cook the vegetable, I might as well buy frozen or use frozen because it's washed, it's cut, it's ready to go. I just pop it in the microwave or I open it and put it in my soup or stew or whatever cooking. Obviously, I'm not gonna make a salad with frozen vegetables, but it's kind of a balance of fresh and frozen. Um, but yeah, even just like with time, sometimes, I mean, I don't always want to make dinner either. So when I do make dinners, I also double or triple, even quadruple batch my meals, and then I freeze it. And so we do leftovers a lot.
That's
So,
smart.
I think we think that in order to be healthy and make healthy meals, you have to make everything from scratch. It has to take you 1 hour. You make dinner every single day. Like, no, you're going to burn out, especially if you're working full time too, which a lot of times, both parents are working. And so it's hard to make those meals every single day. So if you can do some meal prepping or even do like an Instapot or crock pot meal, I'll do that a lot, especially if I have a long work day, like seeing back-to-back clients and I'm exhausted by the end of the day. I will plan ahead and make a crock pot meal. Maybe I put it together the previous night and then just turn it on in the morning, or I get up maybe 15 minutes earlier and get it going in the morning. Um, so, I know this is can be new for a lot of people. Like they're just not used to eating healthy. They're used to doing takeout or like frozen pizza or whatever. And, I always say just like start small. What's one new vegetable you could add in? Maybe you do a bag of frozen broccoli in the microwave or frozen edamame. We do a lot of edamame as a snack. Maybe just starting to add a fruit at breakfast, maybe or even just like maybe higher protein at your breakfast. So, kind of starting small and, sure, we can. I always say as well, like when they tell me they don't have time, I'm like, well, how much time have you been spending on social media?
Yikes. Yeah, for
Instagram
sure.
is, at least for me, I get sucked into it and I can spend hours on there. And then I'm like, shoot, I haven't done anything the past hour. I need to go to the gym or, do something else with my life.
So Are there any other I feel like one of them that I've heard is just people don't wanna eat the same thing over and over. So, like you were saying, trying a new vegetable, but they kind of don't wanna eat the same, like, breakfast or dinner or lunch, or they don't wanna eat leftovers, and I kinda think that's a lame excuse, but I eat the same thing every day, so I'm probably not the best example of that, but do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, I think, kind of think about what you are eating now. Like, what are your meals that you typically eat now? Can you make those yourself? Like, even for example, chicken nuggets. Like, maybe we can make our own. Maybe add some wheat germ into the flour just to boost a little more of that vitamin E and the fiber and even the protein. And maybe use organic chicken here and there. Or I don't know, what are some meals people make? Like, even spaghetti, like I know spaghetti is super easy, but maybe you could add some beef liver into the ground beef. Or maybe you add some mushrooms or onions. I do carrots, I do zucchini in my spaghetti sauce. So you can like puree that and make it into a sauce and just add some more vegetables in the sauce. So if you find that you are a little pickier with vegetables, maybe you hide it here and there. Um, if you're doing hamburgers, maybe you add some onions to that or mushrooms to that. And then maybe you do like some lettuce, some tomatoes and onions. Try to expand the vegetables that you are eating and try to add it here and there. But I would start with like, what are you already eating and how can you like tweak that? Even if you are like, you don't like leftovers, maybe you don't maybe think about like what kind of what food do you not mind that they're leftovers, and then that is what you make double the batch. I don't like eating the same food back to back over several days. So when I do double or triple, quadruple my batches, I'll freeze it and then I might eat it like 2 or 3 weeks from now. So there are some weeks where I might cook like 4 days in a row, different meals, but then I can freeze whatever's left over and use it any other time.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
really good tip. Okay, so I wanna go back to your twin pregnancy. So, what kind of birth did you have? Was it vaginal, cesarean, and how did that go?
Yeah, so I had a vaginal delivery with both of them. Baby A was head down. So when we saw that baby A was head down, my OB was like, yep, we can do a vaginal. Here in Texas, I don't think there are any OBs or midwives that will do breech babies, at least in our town. So yeah, I was really fortunate, really happy that they were head down. I was able to have a vaginal delivery. I carried them to 39 weeks and 4 days. That was very stressful and just exhausting because everyone, like every single person I met that had twins was like, be ready by 35 weeks, be ready by 36 weeks. And then even my OB early on in my pregnancy was like, we typically induce by 37, 38 weeks. So everything I did, like mentally, I was ready to have these babies by like 36, 37 weeks. And well, 36 weeks comes, 37 weeks comes, 38 weeks comes, and like still no babies. And my OB was like, I asked her, she knew that I really wanted a vaginal and more like a holistic birth. And she was like, typically we do induce at 38 weeks, but that's more of a preference. Right now, I don't see any medical concerns, so we can let your body go as you'd like. And obviously, if you have twins, you are just like over pregnancy, like you're just so uncomfortable. You just want the babies out. You're so big and so heavy. And there was just all this pressure down there. I felt like my pelvis was just going to break open and they're going to fall out. And they just did not want to come. And I did all the natural inducing things. I even did like the midwife's brew, like the castor oil. I did the mile circuit. I literally anything that you read online, I tried to do and nothing happened. And so I had an appointment on Monday and I was 39 weeks and 3 days at that point. And I told my OB, I think I my body just needs a little kickstart, like a little bit of Pitocin to just kick it. And she agreed. And so the next morning at 39 weeks, 4 days, I was induced and they started Pitocin, but thankfully my body took over and they were able to turn it off. And so my body took over, and within 5 hours, I delivered baby A. And baby B, actually, he was head down, but after baby A came out, he actually flipped to breech.
Oh
And my
no.
OB told me that that could be a possibility. But she was able to go inside and help flip him down so that he was head down.
Wait, so you're like 10 centimeters dilated. The first baby's out. Did they share a placenta or did the placenta come out?
No. Yeah, so they were die-die. So they were low risk twin pregnancy.
Okay.
So there's a higher risk with like MoDi and Momo. Momo is the highest risk. That's where they share one placenta and one sac, whereas MoDi is two sacs, one placenta, and then die is two placentas, two sacs. So they were the low risk of twins. And so, yeah, baby A came out and then baby B flipped, but she was able to pull him back to head down. And then he came out, and then I delivered both placentas.
Wow, that's crazy. And so while you're delivering baby B, did you get to hold baby A or were you just kind of still in your labor zone?
Yeah, no, I held baby A. I was able to do skin to skin, but as I was getting ready to push baby B, I kept squeezing baby A during the contraction. I was just like holding them down as I'm like trying to push baby A, and they got a little worried for baby A, so they ended up taking him away. And I think they just put him in the warmer, or someone else held him because my husband was like still with me, coaching me. And this was all unmedicated, so I didn't have the epidural. And so I was feeling everything. And so my husband was like with me, coaching me. So I think someone else had the baby, or baby A was with the warmer. And then as soon as baby B came out, they placed him on my chest, and then they brought baby A back to me.
So
Um,
did you do a first latch with both at the same time or one at a time?
We did one at a time, and that's usually what I recommend as well as a lactation consultant, just because, especially since they're newborns, they're also trying to figure it out, and so they need a lot of that support. So trying to figure out, how to hold your breath with the newborn and have them figure out breastfeeding too, because it's their first time as well. So I did one baby at a time, and thankfully, especially like those first few hours, they're both not hungry at the same time. As they get older, I mean, they kind of naturally put themselves a little bit more on the same schedule. But yeah, I did one baby at a time, and then probably by 5 days, I then was kind of forced to tandem feed because they both were hysterically crying, and I didn't have any bottles made just yet because I was just feeding on demand. I wasn't pumping in addition to that. So I had to figure out tandem feeding, and we made it work. I had the Be My Breast Friend pillow, and I latched both babies on. And when I feed them one on one, I always did the cross cradle hold, or the cradle hold. But then when I did both of them, I did more of that football hold for the twins. But yeah.
Did you have a low point either with nursing or even just with like having twins or having your older kids where it was just like, oh, this is just so hard and you kind of hit your low point? Did you have that?
100%. I'm still in that. 1 year postpartum, I'm like, oh, this is still so hard. I thought it would be easier, but no, it was so hard. And I love my twins, and now they're a blessing and I see it, but newborn twins, it is so hard. It's just like next level. And every twin family I talk to, they're like, yeah, I don't even remember the newborn. I just kind of blocked it out. Like you're just in the haze, you're just in survival mode. Like, especially if you have older kids, like mine was 2 years old and 5 years old. She had just turned five. And so they have big emotions, big feelings. They were just begging for our attention. But then with the two babies, I was taking care of one and my husband had the other. He was also trying to like take care of the older two while I like rested. And we had some help. Like my family was out here for probably the first couple weeks, but it wasn't until like week 4 or 5 where the babies hit their witching hour. They were awake a lot more. So like those first 2 weeks were actually great because they slept all the time. They literally just
Yes.
ate and then slept and pooped. And so I remember saying and telling my Instagram followers, like, wow, it's actually pretty good. Like twins aren't that hard. Like really, it's just navigating the older two, but the twins just sleep. And then nope, like week 3, 4, 5, it was just like a nightmare. And I remember having to call my neighbor at one point, was just like, hey, I need another set of hands. Like the older two need to get to bed. My husband's trying to get them. I have 2 hysterically crying babies, and they're feeding off each other. I get one to calm down, but then he hears the other baby start crying. And so my neighbor was amazing. She came over and she took one baby, I took the other baby, and my husband got the other 2 down for
Ha
bed. And
Another set of
um,
hands.
but yeah, it's so hard.
So my kind of breastfeeding strategy was I never did nurse on demand. I did feed, wake, sleep. So I was very much on a schedule. And if my baby cried, but it wasn't necessarily like feeding time, like if he had just ate, I would be like, it's not my milk. I have a good supply. He needs something else. And I would kind of figure out what he needed. But I know that a lot of people do more of like, hey, baby's crying, they get a boob. And so, how do you navigate that as a lactation consultant, or like you have 2 screaming babies? Like, how did you navigate is it they need milk or do they need something else?
Yeah. So I'm a big believer that your breasts and breastfeeding is not just milk, that it is also comfort. And, they created pacifiers because babies love to suckle, and they give pacifiers to NICU babies to comfort them. And so my motto is when in doubt, whip it out. There's no harm in putting babies to the breast. So even if you just fed them, if and they were crying, I would attempt to latch them again. If they're refusing to latch, then I know it's probably not hunger and it's something else. Maybe they need a diaper change, or they've got some gas and they're just uncomfortable, or they need a change of scenery, or you start just process of elimination. But if they just ate and 30 minutes later they're crying, I put them back on the boob. And I always think, like, who am I to tell them whether they're hungry or not? Like, I don't know. And especially when they were cluster feeding, like they need those small frequent feeds. So I know why people do like the method, like the eat, sleep, play. Is that what you said, right?
Yeah, or eat, play, sleep. Yeah.
Play, sleep. So I get why people do that. For me personally, and usually what I tell clients is when in doubt, whip it out. There's no harm in putting them to the boob. You can try other things first, but there's no harm in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see benefits of both. Like now that I've experienced with having 2 babies and just kind of seeing how it does help breastfeeding so much when you do it for comfort. And I
Mhm.
think that's one way that it can go on longer too. And it like helps kind of prolong it or make sure that they're getting all the nutrients they need because God designed them to like desire it for comfort as well. But it's such a cool design too, because it's like, okay, they need to eat, but they also need comfort. And it's both, and it's mom
One
providing
stop
both.
shop.
Yeah. So it is such a beautiful design.
Yeah.
Um,
I definitely felt touched out though. I felt kind of like, I feel touched out. And then, my older 2 would want to hug me and be close to me. And then, my husband's like, I miss you too. And I'm just like, I just want to be alone. I just want to take a shower alone. Like, so yeah, I mean, you definitely feel touched out, but I think just from experience with my first 2, that this is a season. And so just mentally telling myself, like, don't worry, I'm going to sleep through the night. I'll get my alone time. But right now, I'm like, these babies 100% depend on me. So I'm going to have to suck it up. And, I definitely still tried to prioritize my mental health. And so, like, when they were asleep, I would maybe go outside by myself or go for a walk by myself, or try to even just like 10 minutes, just be by myself, regroup. Definitely prioritize my nutrition. Like it was such a hard season, but I didn't physically feel bad. And I think that's because I still prioritized my health. It was more the emotional overwhelm of just like everything I have to deal with, and then even the house, taking care of the house, like even now, like our house is always a mess. It's like if
Yeah,
I
it's
want
a
to play with my
lot.
kids or eat at home, there's going to be more dishes. So it's just kind of like acknowledging that, knowing that this is a season. I've really had to get out of my comfort zone with asking for help. So that's one thing that I'm kind of proud of myself. I now am not afraid to ask for help. Had asked my neighbor to come help at one point. I did end up hiring a college girl just twice a week to help me catch up on laundry or catch up on the dishes or picking up. So, we're not meant to do this alone. And, especially us not having family around here, it's like I have to rely and, bring in this village that I don't really feel comfortable with, but, I have to because we're not meant to do this alone.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's one of the only ways you can succeed in breastfeeding is having that, like you said, the support and the village. Okay, question. What do you remember your first time nursing the twins in public? How did you do that?
Yeah, I think it was like 2 weeks postpartum. We'd gone out and they were hungry and they were both hungry at the same time. And I never was able to master tandem feeding in public. Like even still now, it's just not discreet. Like if I'm gonna do both, I need to have my shirt off and I don't feel comfortable doing that in public. So if if I'm out in public and they both need to be fed, I'll have a pacifier in one baby's mouth while I nurse the other baby, so I can be a lot more discreet with one baby at a time. So I'll nurse that first baby and while I give the pacifier. And then sometimes if that baby with the pacifier is just too hungry and hysterical, then I'll cut baby A, like that first baby's feeding a little bit short. So it's more of a snack for them to just kind of stave off that extreme hunger. And then I'll put that first baby in the stroller again, give him the pacifier because now he's not hysterically crying, like he's got a little food. And then he can continue just suckling content with the pacifier while I nurse the second baby for a full feeding. So I'll offer him the breast, he'll get a full feeding. And then once he's fully fed, I'll put him back in the stroller and I'll feed that first baby, finish off that feeding, make sure he got a full feeding. So that's kind of my approach to breastfeeding the twins in public is just one at a time. And, sometimes I'd bring a bottle, but it was just so much easier to just latch them on the breast than have to think about pumping and then how long has the milk been out? Is it still fresh? Is it still okay to feed them? So yeah, I usually just did one baby at a time.
And did you use like a pillow or like a roll up a blanket or like what did you use to
Yeah.
support or do you
Yeah.
just kind of use your arm?
Yep, I've never really been with one baby. I've never been a fan of pillows. I believe that your body is a natural pillow. So even in my lactation consults, I'll see families and we remove the pillow and they feel so much more comfortable. Baby is a lot more comfortable on the breast because they're fully supported on mom's body. Whereas oftentimes with the pillow, they're kind of falling through the cracks or mom is hunched up, trying to like bend over, trying to get the breast in the baby's mouth. Whereas when there's no pillow involved, you are like one-on-one connected with your baby and they can get a deeper latch. And so the pillow helped with two babies, just, trying to hold one baby. With twins, I do usually recommend a pillow those early days or early weeks, just since they don't have any head control. But if you're doing one baby at a time, I'm a fan of no pillow. So,
That's
yeah.
so interesting. I know for me, I always felt like I needed the pillow, and I even had a travel one that I would tie around. And I felt like it really helped to have that and like encouraged my experience. But
Good.
I do totally agree with you though. There were probably definitely times where I maybe he was like falling in the crack or whatever, like you said. And I think that's so interesting too. And I think it's so freeing because then you can go anywhere and
Yeah.
you're not limited by like with my first I had the nipple shield and then I also felt like I always need the pillow. And we did go everywhere. Like we did everything. We went to Disney World, all of the things, but I always had to have those things with me, like these props. And I love the idea of just the freedom.
Yeah, yeah, that's really what I tried to get parents to kind of move away from that. And like even a nipple shield, I think it's a great tool, but I do try to kind of wean them off if we can. And I always think, how did our ancestors do that? They didn't have all these supplies and tools. So yeah, I think if we can move away, but at the same time, if that's what is helping you breastfeed, then I'm going to support you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I had another question, but we'll come back to it if I remember it. So how do people like meet with you, or how could they book with you or get either lactation or nutrition, or do you do both at the same time?
Yeah, we can do both at the same time. So, I mean, breastfeeding, nutrition has a huge impact on mom's nutrition, and especially if you notice your baby's having food sensitivities to what you're eating, or maybe they're developing a rash or mucousy stools or whatever it is. We can always address your nutrition and how it impacts baby, and then even just like your energy. I don't want you feeling like a zombie all day, every day. So yeah, I'm about 95% virtual. I'll see a couple families here and there in person, but primarily virtual. And we can do oral assessments. I can navigate tongue ties or assess tongue ties. Latching, COVID was actually a blessing in disguise for my business because everything was virtual. And so I had to get really good at looking at babies and solving hard breastfeeding cases virtually. And so, really, the only thing I can't do virtually is a weighted feed where you weigh baby before and after feeding, but we can still assess latch, flange sizing, pumping. So, you can visit my website, aloha-nutrition.com, and I do virtual consults worldwide. I just had a mom in like the United Arab Emirates, which I was like, whoa, this is cool. um, so yeah, and then also my Instagram is aloha.nutrition. So if anyone wants nutrition or breastfeeding support, I can certainly help you. And then even with nutrition, I do functional medicine, functional nutrition, so we can do lab testing. So if you're told your digestive issues are just normal, like, nope, let's dig deeper. Let's see what's going on. So,
Awesome. I remembered my other question. What pump do you recommend?
whatever you whatever you need basically is, are you going to be returning to work? Do you need a wearable pump? Do you have other kids? Do you need more of a portable pump? Or are you sitting at a desk and you don't mind if it's a pump that you plug in the wall? I have some that I lean more towards, like the portable pump. I love the baby Buddha, the ones that you plug in the wall. I think Spectra is good. Some of the wearable ones, like the Mom Cozy is supposed to be really good. I have the Mom Cozy M9. I know a lot of people do the LV or Willow. So it's also just like, how do you feel? I think everybody responds differently to a pump as well. So you can read all the reviews, but also you need to figure out like your lifestyle, how often you're going to be pumping. If you're going to be exclusively pumping, I don't recommend a wearable pump as your sole pump. If you're primarily breastfeeding and you need to pump just here and there, then a wearable pump is totally fine. So it really depends on your situation.
Awesome. I feel like you're so like you have such a mental fortitude and strength and like toughness. I mean, you said your husband deployed at one point and then, just nursing and working and having twins and everything. So, how do you do it all? Like what's your secret sauce, or is it faith? Is it family? Like
Yeah.
what's your keeps you strong and keeps you going?
Well, definitely God. So, God, I mean, every day I pray, God, give me strength. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. But I also practice the 3 Ds: do, delegate, delete. So, what are my stressors that only I can do? Only I can do, like, I can only breastfeed. Only I can do those night feedings, or, certain things around the house, or even in my business, only I can do. What are some things I can delegate? Are there stressors that I can delegate? Even just having my college girl twice a week come to help me catch up on the laundry or the dishes or picking up. And then what are some things I need to delete? I mean, I say no a lot. Like I'll get some companies to reach out wanting to do something, a partnership or, speaking engagement or, even just a consult here and there. And sometimes I say no because I have to just prioritize what are the stressors that need to get done today, and definitely my family is a huge priority. So if it interrupts my family life or anything like that, maybe I need to reconsider, have a conversation with my husband, like, should I take this or not? Um, Putting boundaries on things. And then definitely like nutrition. Like your body is your engine, your car, you have to fuel it. So definitely I start the day every day, even if I don't quote unquote feel like eating breakfast. I make myself eat breakfast. Even like drinking an electrolyte drink. I've got one right now on our call. So, definitely prioritizing that. And then just also knowing that I have seasons, like I might have a season where I am more busy and then another season where things are a little slower. But, wherever you say yes, there's also no. Um, so I don't know. I don't feel like I do everything. Like sometimes I get imposter syndrome and I look at someone else and I'm like, wow, how do they do it all? But then I know someone else might look at me and think, oh, how does she do it all? But, I don't think we're all actually doing it all. And it's definitely like mom work life integration versus balance. Like I have to integrate my business into my family life, And I do have contractors that work with me. So I have a couple other dietitians and lactation consultants. So they also will see clients if I can't. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. I want to wrap it up, but I had one more question. So, do you have clients or have you ever felt the need to lose weight while breastfeeding, and how do you handle that?
Yeah. So I always say that weight loss is a byproduct of addressing your overall health. They call it safety weight for a reason. So if your body doesn't feel safe, it's going to have a harder time losing weight. And some of this, like safety, like your body feeling safe, could be not eating enough. So I know so much of diet culture tells you that if you want to lose weight, you need to cut calories, but you might lose the weight. But this is also now taking a toll on your energy, on your digestion, even your milk supply. And so I like to approach it more of supporting your metabolism. How can we support your thyroid? How can we support your gut health? Because your gut is ultimately is what's absorbing the calories that you're eating. So how can we support gut health? How can we support sleep? Because sleep has a huge impact on weight. And obviously with your baby waking up frequently, how can we help you get quality sleep, not just quantity, like 8 hours as we all wish, but how can we get quality sleep? And then, different stressors. Also, what are you eating? Because not all calories are created equal. So, we're told often with breastfeeding, you need to eat more, you need to eat, and you do, but you also need to make sure you're eating quality food, higher in protein. Protein is very satiating, it keeps you fuller longer. And so if you have 100 calories of almonds versus 100 calories of lactation cookies, those almonds are actually going to help you lose weight compared to the 100 calories of cookies, even if they're lactation cookies. So, I get clients all the time asking for weight loss, and when we dig deeper, they're also having lower energy. They're not sleeping well. They're waking up, even if their babies might be sleeping through the night or at least sleeping a little bit more. Um, so once we help their body feel safe, once we nourish themselves, we focus on nutrient repletion, then weight loss actually does come. So I tell them, be patient. Let's work on just supporting your metabolism. Let's support your thyroid. Let's support your stress and sleep. And if weight loss happens, great. If not, you just might need a little more time, and that's okay, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, Allegra, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come talk to us. And I just love your encouragement, your mentality. And I think your story and what you've been able to accomplish is so amazing and such a great encouragement to tell moms that it is possible. It is possible to breastfeed twins for over 12 months. And it's an amazing, encouraging story. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.